Hey everybody, do you ever wonder why top executives and athletes are so successful? It's typically because they have a coach, someone that is looking at them from the outside to identify their gaps, identify their potential. That's what I do. I'm Steve Fretzin, and I'm here to help you be that lawyer. If you're interested in a free consultation, click the link below and we'll get together and we'll identify where you can make improvements to be that lawyer. Hey everybody, Steve Fretzin. Welcome back to the Be That Lawyer podcast. I'm so happy that you're with us. If you guys haven't figured it out yet, we've got the podcast, we've got YouTube videos, we're all over LinkedIn, we've got Above the Law. We are everywhere. We've got the new book. I don't know if you've seen this, Seth, new book, right? 101 Top Rainmaker Secrets to Growing a Successful Law Practice. It's all in there. If you want to learn from the best and brightest, you're going to want to check that out. Welcome to the show, man. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. We're going to have some fun today.
Absolutely.
All right, that's the name of the game. Fun and actionable tips for our audience members who are so hungry for knowledge that they're taking up their busy day to hang out with us. So let's start off with a quote. This is biblical. This is going back to ancient times. Nothing's easy. That's the quote you gave me. Nothing's easy.
Every time is, look, I have not one, but two entrepreneurial ventures, the law firm and Blue Shark Digital. One has 200 employees, the other's 100, hundreds of clients between them. And every stuff happens every day. Just before I got on here, a favorite friend and mentor thought that misunderstanding and thought that he'd been dispersed, and nothing's easy. You're working with an employee, you think things are great, and then it is a, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But that anytime you think you got it all figured out, you're probably about to get smacked in the head.
Well, actually, I have a resolution for you that you might like. There's a little red button that you just put in front of you and you hit it, and everything that says the easy button. I found that works really well.
I wish, but
doesn't work like that.
Yeah, look, I have one lawyer at my firm, and they are notorious. They're amazing. They do incredible volume, but they've not been able to hold on to an associate, almost like Murphy Brown style. And it's almost like this revolving door. And I'm like, the worst thing is when you just don't want to make the same mistake twice, they say. And when you're making it for the 3rd or 4th time, you're like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that, if the flip side of this is that if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
There we go.
I wouldn't have 50 lawyers. We wouldn't have 300 clients at Blue Shark, but, thankfully it is difficult. It isn't easy. And therefore it gives us a little bit of a moat separating us from the world.
Yeah, but I think you kind of nailed it in that, like mistakes and problems, they're going to happen all the time. It's like, A, how we deal with it, and B, what did we learn from it, right? And if we keep making mistakes over and over, I've been punched in the face a few times and then I just keep getting punched in the face. Probably not. Maybe I should learn how to duck, right? Like at some point you got to stop getting punched in the face. So awesome to have you here. For everybody listening, Seth Price is the managing partner of Price Benowitz and also the founder of Blue Shark Digital. Love to hear you share your background with everybody, in running 2, sizable organizations and how that all came to be.
Sure. So I started out, I went to law school, went practice because there was, came out when there weren't a lot of great opportunities in the mid 90s, and sort of hid in a big law firm for a while, was not great at it, didn't love it. And late 90s, the dot-com bubble came up where the internet was a thing, and went to New York to make my fortune and started a company that was founding employee for something called uslaw.com. And when the bubble and the internet burst, licked my wounds after one of my mistakes we could talk about later, and ended up starting the law firm with my college law school buddy, Dave Benowitz. So over 20 years, we built Price Benowitz from a 2-lawyer firm to a 50-lawyer firm, leveraging digital marketing. And then 10 years ago, I took the in-house digital team that was responsible for building Price Benowitz into the juggernaut that it became. And that became Blue Shark, which now represents about 300 law firms nationwide for search and local search.
Yeah. So what do you think then, being in the space? I mean, you have a unique perspective as, a managing partner of a law firm and as the founder of a digital company to kind of really see the mistakes that are being made by lawyers and law firms today. I mean, why do you feel like they struggle so much with the marketing side of things?
Well, I think from day one at my firm, I divided and conquered, where I focused 100% on marketing and management and operations. And my law partner, Dave, was the chief legal officer, and he worried about that stuff. Great. So that allowed for it. But I think it's that pull and tug that a lot of people are the practitioner, and yet they have to be able to do all these other things. And that's not easy. And then, there are people that get it and those that don't. So first you have to have the bandwidth. And then if you do have the bandwidth, are you allocating things properly? And are you focused on something and digging deep? Or are you going after chasing shiny objects? I see a lot of lawyers chasing shiny objects, and that's not a great thing either. So there's a time and place for everything. Your podcast has helped you build your business and your empire, whereas there are other people where it does nothing. And I think understanding what you do, I'll give you a great example. If you're doing blue collar criminal, while a podcast is cool, it's very hard to bring on a local criminal practice to be able to network yourself to wealth and riches. It's really, less of a marketed game. Whereas, let's say you were a local trust and estates lawyer using the B2C world. Podcasts are amazing for a lot of reasons. But if you brought on a different financial advisor every week, those are all potential sources. So there's a direct correlation. So I think it's allocating your time and resources wisely based on what you want to accomplish. And there are a lot of people out there that either don't put any resources behind it or time, A, and then B, those that do, are you allocating the resources effectively?
Yeah. Although I have an idea, if you are a criminal attorney, maybe bring on like detectives and cops to tell their craziest criminal stories, and maybe you'll pick up some.
But maybe it isn't a business model. Like, if you did that for a year, would you pick up a case or two? Maybe. But if you took that same time, money, and resources and put that into some sort of, in my opinion, search marketing there, I would recommend it. When a B2B lawyer comes to me and says, hey, should I do SEO? I'm like, absolutely not first, at least, right? You do that one, but do you have season tickets to a game to bring people to the games? Do you have a podcast? Are you doing a breakfast meeting where you bring people together with speakers? Like, what are you doing? Because if you're in a B2B space, I always say, how many potential clients do you have? And if it's 60 in your entire metro that could make you money, you should have a list of those 60. You should be doing lunches and dinners and ball games. And one by one, that means that 60, if you touch 2 people a day, every 2 months, you've touched somebody in that circle. And so the idea is it finite? Is it medium size? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? My point on criminal is, for example, people don't generally ask for referrals. They do sometimes, but search is so dominant in that space, versus other areas like a personal injury where it could be search, it could be TV, it could be referrals. They all work. But if you're in a space where referrals are much less likely, then you want to you could do it, but it's less likely to show success.
Yeah. But what it sounds like is that everyone's gotta figure out, either what they enjoy, who their clients are, who their referral sources are, what, and go where that action is, and not try to just mirror other people or do what everyone else is doing. So I'm doing podcasting, everyone should do a podcast. No, that's not the case, right? It's going to be based. I mean, if you want to do a podcast because it's fun and because it might get you some branding to kind of show off, like I could do a podcast on fishing. That may not bring me the lawyers, but it might bring me, might be kind of a fun thing to do on the side. I'm not going to rely on it.
Right. But I think, okay, so there's a business philosophy I have, which is people do what they like to do. It's true for our employees. It's true for everybody. And so if you like it, you can see it. You enjoy this conversation, right? You were like, hey, make sure it's a conversation in the pregame. Of course, that's how I roll. But if you don't like this, if you're an introvert, it's not going to last. My law partner, he was like, he started podcasts. He did 3 of them and they never did it again for white collar. It would have been great. He could have had white collar referral sources on for years. So when we do SEO, we have writing. If you like to write, your content will do well. Buddy of mine, Dan Schwartz, is an employment defense lawyer out of Connecticut, has a Connecticut employment lawyer blog, a brilliant blog. It combines sports, pop culture, family, and some employment law. And he's made a whole career off of it. But if you don't like writing, you're going to write one page and you have a 1-page blog and nothing else on it. So I think figuring out not just what will work, but what you enjoy in the intersection of those two So for me, I started out, I love the digital. I was in the, described during the early .com things, the early days of the internet. I loved finding people to link back to me, looking at looking through the web and finding those opportunities. To me, that was fun. And so I did it and I did more of it. But if you hated that and being told no and having, door hit you in the head a bunch of times, you'd never do it and you wouldn't build anything. So I think to the point, and you sort of, if you had a fishing blog or fishing podcast, you do the best one in the world. It's likely not going to make you money as a lawyer. It might bring you joy. You might have a business selling fishing equipment, but you're not going to drive it. So it's figuring out what you love and combining that with what is possibly going to work as a likelihood of success.
Yeah. And you've got business development, you've got marketing and branding. And I like when people do all of it at the same time. But I think to a point you made earlier, the B2B attorney at a big firm, doing SEO or doing, Google ads, like that's not going to make sense.
No,
they're dealing with general counsels and CEOs at major corporations or whatever. So how do you break down for a lawyer, if you were to coach a lawyer on figuring out what business development marketing they should be doing? Let's say we'll just come up with it, say like commercial real estate attorney.
Well, so the first question is B2C versus B2B. It's a very big threshold, right? I mean, it sounds obvious, but B2C means anybody could be your client within reason, and B2B not. So when B2C, mass market, TV, internet, radio, you name it. When you're doing B2B, it becomes, I think, in some ways more challenging. So within the B2B world, do you have a finite number of people that can help, as I mentioned before, or is it pretty large? And the question is, how do you get in front of them? So, and that's the next question. Are you regional? Are you national? Are you, if you're regional, there may be a finite number of potential business sources. And then in one sense, it becomes easier. You could send if you go with the Seth Godin permission marketing, send, if it's 100 people in town, 100 people getting a bottle of wine from you, somebody's going to pick up the phone and say hi. Mm-hmm. You see the gifting programs. I'm looking at that on the marketing side as a B2C lawyer. Some of the large marketing companies do gifting programs to get your attention. And it's fascinating. You send somebody enough gifts, they're going to take your call. And so, are there things you can do? Are you doing podcasts? Are you doing speaking? All of those things. There's no one magic thing, but that I think that you need to recognize what is likely to bring success. And you can try anything. Look, I would argue that there's a possibility that even with a YouTube channel, you could crack into areas of B2B law if getting that content out there. The question is, would having a message out there move the needle, or are these people that are never going to listen to outside elements but need connectors to bring you to them? You need to figure out what is realistically going to work.
Yeah. So it's really gauging and understanding your audience. Is it local? Is it national? Is it B2B, B2C? And how do they either make a decision, or how do they get to the point where they're going to talk with a lawyer? So again, is it through connectors? Like some people, they're not even going to try to market to CEOs or GCs directly. They're going to market to the connectors because they're never going to get a meeting with those people without the connectors. If you're a rainmaker and you're feeling like you're on an island, you don't have anyone to share your ideas with, solve problems with, you're going to want to check out my Rainmaker roundtables. Click the link below and learn more.
Right. I mean, or that's, connectors are very, very powerful. You can go that way. You can try to go your own way, but there's no magic formula. And part of it is you try it for a bit, and if it works, great. Stuff that I remember. So on the B2B side, we have a white collar practice, which is as close to B2B as out there. We still do an internet, it's amazing. We still created multi-seven figures of income from digital marketing, even for the white collar world. But most of white collar cases go between lawyers. One lawyer gets the CEO, somebody else gets the CFO, somebody else gets the CEO's wife, et cetera. And one of the things that I recognized early on, we started trying to network up with the elder statesmen in the industry. And one of the things we noticed, and there's always an exception to the rule, was that was very, very difficult. That those people had been in practice and they had their own people that they had networked with that they referred stuff out to. And that it wasn't easy advice to take, but that the better return on investment was to focus on the people that were your peers. Now, when we started 20 years ago, those people didn't have many cases to refer out. But over time, as you rose with those people came to prominence. They had more cases, you had more cases, and that ecosystem worked really nicely. So some of it, I think, is figuring out what sandbox your message is resonating in and paying your dues. But again, we'll come back to the B2C example. I am convinced that B2C lawyer who spends all their time at BNI is probably misplaced in that, yeah, you might get a case or two over the course of a year, but your time is not particularly well spent. Again, I'm always about going out. It's not bad, but you would be infinitely better off figuring out how to find other sources of cases rather than just hoping that networking your way in that would be a positive ROI on time.
Yeah. I mean, one of the first things I do with new lawyers that I work with, obviously evaluate, their strengths, their weaknesses, their gaps, all this stuff, but it's really to identify the low-hanging fruit and go after it and create a business plan around it and break it down into pieces. Do you have a feeling about when you do figure out like what direction you should go, whether it's a particular group that you're joining, being a speaker, going out and speaking, that how do you break that into manageable pieces? Because I remember lawyers, managing partners saying, like, what's your advice to an associate? Well, get out there. So like we can talk big picture, like get out there, it's worthless, right? Or we can get into the weeds on like how you actually become a great speaker or get an audience of a speaker or get results with speaking, as an example. Do you have a flavor for that?
Look, I can, it's tough in one sense, because I'm not you. I do it for myself. I mean, I have a podcast on growth and I can give stories. My story was I before I even had a digital agency, I loved law. I loved marketing. I loved digital marketing. And so people would ask me to speak and I liked it because I was frugal and it was free if you spoke. And you got to be in the green room with the other speakers, which was very often some of the most interesting people there. I think the problem, if you're speaking to an associate and you're young, nobody cares what you have to say. It's tough. It's which comes first. So, so the question is, how do you set yourself apart? And are you a decent speaker to begin with? Because if you're not a great speaker, actual stuff, like how you deliver, that's another issue. So you can get better at it. You do Toastmasters and things like that. I would say, look, right now, especially in the B2B space, LinkedIn is an untapped area. I've been playing with it over the last few months. I've seen you out there. It's, people are on there 99 to 1, basically viewing or stalking and not producing content. And LinkedIn needs content. And if you're willing to put content out there, it resonates. You get a lot more interaction when you do stuff controversial, which as an associate, you really can't, because part of my whole business social media concept is do no harm. And when you go edgy, there can be harm. But to me, it's consistency. One of my, I love the example out there of Jonathan Pollard. I'm sure you know from LinkedIn. He's one of the sort of forethought, early evangelists of it. And he puts out really opinionated stuff that might not fly at Big Law, but he went from a guy in a B2B space, essentially. I mean, he's doing these non-competes for executives, a very finite market. The idea is if you create brand and personality within it, and this isn't like brand like John Morgan brand, but if you're a B2B lawyer who does antitrust, and you put out 3 pieces a week on antitrust and people start seeing you, aggregating information, all of a sudden you're going to gain gravitas. Say all of a sudden it's over, you'll be a 5-year, overnight sensation. It's if you pay your dues and aggregate this stuff. But let's take antitrust as one of my buddies. He's a struggling antitrust lawyer, 25 years in. If you go out there and you are aggregating information, you have a podcast where you're bringing in the top thought leaders, part of the reason we became friends, you had a podcast and we talked and it's like, oh, that'd be cool to be on. And this is a destination. You have a book, you've done these different pieces. So over time, you're the grad school example of what you want to be doing.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I mean, and to your point earlier, like this doesn't happen overnight. This is a 21-year adventure that I've been on. And LinkedIn I was at the forefront of that, 18 plus years ago, where I have a room of 100 people that were learning about it for the first time. And I thought it was the greatest sales tool that's ever been invented. I used to tell people, I want you to take your cell phone, I want you to go to a toilet, and I want you to throw it in the toilet and flush it down and go back to a corded phone where you're stuck to your desk and you have a yellow pages, if people even know what that is. Because that's how powerful LinkedIn is. It's as powerful as your phone in many ways. It's just a computer in your hand. But I think the problem with LinkedIn for lawyers is there's two problems. Number one is their mindset is that it's not beneath them, but it's like, I don't know where to start, or I don't know how to get going on it. And by the way, why would I bother? It's already so crowded. And I know I've got 100 ways of dispelling that or demystifying that, but what's your take on that? Because it's clearly, from my take, is like you're either in the game or you're not in the game.
So I was day one of LinkedIn, or maybe I should say day two. I got the invitation from the guy, got day one, and the next day I got the invitation.
Okay.
Right. So I have like 20,000 or so, people connected, at least as friends on there. And what I would say is it's never too late. And that what we're seeing, and I think Gary Vee and others are talking a lot about this, that the LinkedIn networks aren't looking at your connections. Like people with more connections don't. Right now, we're at a magical time where they're looking for the quality of content and putting that out there. And LinkedIn in particular is looking for quality. So many bad AI sales pitches, etc., that if you're putting thoughtful content, it will resonate. And again, it's not going to resonate in one day, but I think the first thing is don't overthink it. I have a friend in the B2B space years ago. Do I go on Facebook or do I go on LinkedIn? And my answer is both. Like it's LinkedIn has its place and Facebook has its place. People do work with people they know, like, and trust. I know people that, you just like in the early days of email, you could email the CEO of Ford Motors and get through because nobody was emailing. Now, obviously that doesn't work. LinkedIn messages, we get way too much spam. I assume that anything with the word synergy is just spam or collaboration. It's like, it's wasting my time. That said, if you get a Facebook Messenger, that's pretty powerful stuff. And you can get to people that you wouldn't get to ordinarily. People that are, name brands in the legal and or marketing space, I can connect with through a Facebook message in a way that I couldn't any other way. My emails would get screened out and there's no way I'd be able to get a hold of them. So I think it's figuring out what works. And the idea, look, Nike says it, just do it. It's true. Again, consistency, it's too crowded. Give it a shot. Play. It's almost like you're on the Tonight Show. Spin the wheel. Find me the most arcane area. The more arcane, the better of legal. If you start putting content on that, you may not get a ton of interaction, but the people that are interested are going to find it, and you're going to be that guy. And all of a sudden, you now when somebody needs a podcast, it goes there. There's a lot of power. And to me, if you're so willing to, I don't want to share my personal stuff, have a dummy account on Facebook. Facebook is for middle-aged people, and you can do a lot of damage and connect with a lot of people in ways that you couldn't otherwise. Because again, it's about, in the B2B space, it's who do you know, like, and trust, and it's very hard to scale that. That's why this podcast is great. You and I are a prime example. We have spent more time on podcast than we have outside of podcast. I have seen a conference or two for 5 minutes here or there as you're running from thing to thing, but really our relationship is entirely podcast based.
Yeah. It's and the thing that people don't understand is that one of the challenges with LinkedIn and anytime you're trying to put out content is you have to sit and think about it and figure out like what you're going to write, what you're going to put on. And what we have figured out, right, is that when you have an article that you write, or you have a podcast that you put on, videos that you do, whatever it is, the content, that you then have the instant ability to post on social media because you have you're building content and you need a place to put it. You need a place to take that content and break it up. So like this podcast, and maybe people are getting sick of hearing me telling this, but like we have the video, we have the audio, we're going to write what's called a blogcast. Took the podcast, wrote a book. Like there's all these ways of getting movement and adding value on social media So that's why I think creating content helps. If you're
Right.
not
And I
creating
would say
content,
even
you're just thinking out of your head every day. Like, what am I going to do today? What am I going to do today? And you just blow it off because there's easier things to think about, like the work.
right. But I would say that as you're saying that, I could see some of these naysayers shutting off. Everything you say is right, right? Let's start with that.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's not the point. The point is if you create great content over time, if you're in some B2B niche that you can't do Google ads, you can't SEO, you can't do local search, but if you're able to produce thoughtful content in that area, or better yet, you're the aggregator that brings it together or shows people when there's stuff because you're finding it. A freaking Google alert can get you again, forget about the multi-purposing. Yes, you're right. But like I know that people who should be listening to you are shutting off with that. What I'm saying is own the content and be that person and good things will happen.
I think you mean be that lawyer.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Just checking. The other thing
Well, I can't use that. That's trademark.
that is trademarked. Absolutely. And I got the t-shirt and everything. Ultimately, though, if you're not creating content that you can repurpose, then, I have articles in Above the Law and other places where I talk about, create a poll a week, like ask a question, get engagement. I did a poll. Listen, you'll love this, Seth, if you didn't see it, but I did a poll about the solicitation that's going on LinkedIn, where you're getting those messages and what do people think about it. I think I got 100 responses in about 12 hours. And if I look at it now, it might be 200 responses. So 200 people have interacted and engaged with a poll. And by the way, I also want to know the answers. Like, how do they feel about it? Do they feel the same that I do? That I immediately disconnect from someone that's selling me on LinkedIn. Like, I want to engage in a meaningful way. Not, we got a little puppy in the background?
Yeah. Scout.
Scout? All right.
Yeah.
Mine just sits and snores all day, by the way. But ultimately, doing a poll, creating a top 10 list of, you figured out, estate planning tips for people who hate estate planning, whatever it might be. You're just come up with something and then you said the word consistent, and then make a consistent play every week or every day, whatever your jam is, to get it out there and play the game that's being played.
Absolutely. So to me, it really is, it's being the center of that mini universe. There was a guy I remember growing up when I was a baby lawyer. It was Telecom Bill. He was that guy. They're trial lawyers I know that go to the trial lawyer meeting each week or each month and give the update on the relevant case law. It puts them at the forefront. Yeah. They're smart guys, but they're putting that extra effort in. If you're the aggregator, if you're that intersection where you're bringing people timely information, it's there. And then God forbid you actually find the people that could use that and that you push it out to them. Then, I mean, that's, it's not rocket science. And the smaller your universe, to me, the more conquerable it is. In one sense, B2C is challenging, but to me, I love it. To me, the local search concept where you can show that you're the dominant player locally is what I love and what I would have used to move the needle. But when you have a finite group of people, that's where, you can do some real damage because it's now you can give real time and attention to almost each one.
Yeah. Really great stuff. I mean, we could probably talk for hours about this. I want to wrap up with your, what we call Seth's big mistake. What's a big mistake you made in your career, in your life, that you look at now and go, yep, that was a big mistake, and here's what I did about it?
Well, look, my law partner and I, before we launched the law firm, did a bunch of real estate investing in like lower income neighborhoods and didn't love it. It was really it was very tough. And I didn't love some of the decisions I had to make. And that as the market crashed, it became even less fun. So to me, eliminating something, even though long-term could have been very lucrative for, the focus, you have so much time and attention, and saying, you know what, rather than having to deal with disgruntled tenants and lead paint issues and this and that, being able to focus on building something you really cared about and passionate about, that was a big, big win.
Yeah. The power of saying no, or the power of removing something negative or that takes your time. I don't think lawyers, people in general, do enough of that. That could be even like a bad relationship with a friend. Like, how do we just like exit from the negative and exit from things that don't make us happy?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done, but when you do it, it's really great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, man. So let's wrap up with our sponsors. Of course, Law Her Podcast. Everybody check out my friend Sonia doing that. And of course, PimCon happening in September. No, it's happening in October in Scottsdale. First class experience there with Chris Dreyer. Seth, if people want to get in touch with you, they want to hear about Price Benowitz or Blue Shark Digital, what are the best ways for them to reach you?
Just connect on socials, LinkedIn, Facebook.
Do you do social media? I hadn't heard.
You know, I'm not even that, to me, that I get it. You know, I get it. It's just the easiest way. There's always email, Seth at Blue Shark, but to me, it's the conversation, which you love so much, and continuing it and being part of it, and look forward to sharing that with your audience.
Yeah. Well, we've got, half a dozen amazing takeaways from our show today. And I've got my usual page of notes of things that I'll be, creating video around and just taking all the bright and brilliant things that you've shared today and producing content. But, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you coming on the show, what you're doing for lawyers, how you're helping improve their lives. And I'd love to have you back soon. We'll keep in the loop though.
Look forward to it. Great to see you.
Thank you, man. And thank you everybody for hanging out with Seth and I today on the Be That Lawyer podcast. We are here to help you be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Take care, everybody. Be safe, be well. We will talk again soon. Are you ever curious what's really holding you back in business development? Sometimes it's hard to see the label from the inside of the bottle. I'm Steve Fretzin, and I can help you grow your book of business. Get a 30-minute free consultation with me. We'll identify gaps, identify your potential, and let's take it to the next level so you can be that lawyer. Click the link below for a free consultation.